Welcome back. I want to just ask you, have you ever done coffee at Avenue Suit? Usikie vile iko tamu. Ask that guy who is known as Jose. Alikunywa siku moja, jamaa anashindaga hapa. Because coffee is just nice. It is done. It is that coffee we call prepared. So I continue with what is really killing this generation. We have a generation of copying and pasting. A generation that believes that Google have every answer. A generation that doesn't want to think. A generation that doesn't want to innovate. Because if you copy and paste, the reason as to why, for those of us who went to school, we were told, don't copy homework. The reason as to why we are told, do your own homework, is so that you may develop the capability to be creative, the capability to be innovative. And so we have a generation that only does copying and pasting. Whether you go to the university, you go to high school, you go even to churches. It's a generation that is lazy. Laziness helps these guys only think. Provided I have Google, I can make it. And this can tell you is the reason as to why we have fewer people who are doing innovation, fewer people who are doing creative things, fewer people who are coming up with new songs, because a copying and pasting generation only does what have been done. So they don't bring anything new into the market. They only roll on what has happened. And the current generation is desiring for the people who are going to become themselves and rise up to come up with new things, new business ideas, new innovation. I'm sure that even those that are doing science congress and drama festivals, music festivals, things that during our times we saw creativity, we saw things that we have never had. Nowadays, we are not even interested, because a generation that copies and pastes is rolling it out. And so copying and pasting kills our creativity, kills our innovation power. And so it destroys a generation. And you see, with that, it facilitates what I said earlier. It facilitates laziness. Because I can't stretch my brain to think beyond, because I have Google. I can't stretch my brain to think beyond this assignment because I have Google. So copying and pasting is another thing that is killing this generation. This generation also is being killed by watching a lot of garbage. Remember the rule of the game? Garbage in, garbage out. We live in a generation that is having garbage at around 68 to 75% of the content revolving and going on air. And so we have a lot of people who, instead of filtering what is happening, they get a lot of things that are so destructive. And you see, information feeds the brain. For your brain and for your mind to think positive, then you must have watched stuff that is positive, stuff that is challenging, that is telling you, hey, man, wake up. But when you watch garbage, your brain only processes garbage. Your brain only processes things that are negative. Your brain only processes things that are downward. And so we have a generation that is violent, a generation that doesn't have a second thought because of what we watch. Because if you watch a lot of violence, if you watch a lot of things that are not working, then your brain will only have the capacity to process that. And once we start processing things that are garbage, then we can only give out garbage. And so garbage in, garbage out. what we feed our mind with is making a generation to be weaker. Another thing, and this one is a challenge to the parents, another thing that is making this generation get destroyed is dysfunctional families. Families that are not working, dads that are not there, fathers that are not even pleasant. And we keep on complaining about the boy child, because that's where I want to start. We keep on complaining about the boy child. But the boy child is looking for someone to emulate. They are looking for men to emulate them. But the man who is being waited by the boy child to make or to squeeze out the man out of the boy, they are not there. And so what basically happens is that we lose a generation. We lose a generation to things that are not there, because the fathers and the mothers are not present. The dysfunctionality of the families makes the next generation to lack stability. The work of the parents is to make the next generation get roots that can give them stability, roots that can give them the ability to stand out, roots that can give them the ability to face the challenges of the time, roots that can give them the ability to go against the storms of life. The other thing that families give to the next generation are wings to fly, wings of inspiration, wings of motivation, wings that makes this generation go beyond what the current generation have taken into account. And so dysfunctional families raises children who, if they are girls, they don't believe in marriage, because they have not seen their dad home, they have not seen their dad doing things that dads are supposed to do. They compare themselves with other families that have dads. They compare themselves and ask deep questions. If really marriage was good, why is it that my dad is not home? If I was to get married, will I be just like my mother? And so dysfunctional families makes the next generation live a life that has bitterness, a life that has wounds, a life that makes them not ready to have the ability to stand out and face or fight the challenges of the day. So dysfunctional family is something that we need to really look into. And I have challenged the students that I have met coming from dysfunctional families to perform so well, because if they become champions, they might restore their families. Another thing that is killing this generation is hopelessness. Are people who look into the environment and think that the environment is so harsh, the environment is against what I'm to become, or they look into the failures of the world and tell themselves that, oh, I can not make it because so and so never made it. And what really drives these guys is the environment without. So the environment without gives them a possibility of thinking there is no hope in the world. So the dictation is what others have gone through, without even asking themselves, is that person me? Or is that person created the same way I was created? Or did that person get the opportunity that myself I got? And so they lose hope. And hopelessness drives this generation to the next thing that is killing them: drugs and substance abuse. We have so many people talking about stress, And before I even talk about that, I want to encourage this generation that stress is part of any great man or any great woman. The power to overcome is what makes someone to stand out. And so anytime people are getting into stress, they get into drugs and substance abuse. Now, no generation has ever solved a problem with a problem. And so I meet generations trying to solve problems with problems, getting into drugs, and drugs only make things worse. I've seen so many people chasing their dreams in the rehab, chasing their dreams in the mental health hospitals. And we even know that mental illness is a disaster in the world. But the facilitation, or what is triggering so many people to get into mental illness, is the abuse of drugs, abuse of alcohol, which alters the way these guys think, alters their physical appearance, alters their emotional balance, which gives them a lesser ability to cope and to overcome the challenges of the day. And so drugs and substance abuse is another thing that is totally killing the next generation. Because if you have a generation that doesn't think straight, if we have a generation that doesn't perform straight, then we will have a weaker generation when it comes to the workforce, a weaker generation when it comes to even standing for the nation, a weaker generation when it comes to anything about even the families. And so we cry today for having dysfunctional families. But when our young people are given to drugs and substances, then we might have destructive and dysfunctional and almost no family in the future. The last thing I'll talk about is orientation. And I know this is some very salty water. And on orientation, where we are talking about people not being male or female, going to so many other things, and we think that we were not created so well. And the thing that really kills the next generation is identity confusion. And identity confusion is brought about by things that really maybe happened during childhood, things that has happened during teenage, body shaming, emotional abuse, all these words that were told to this generation. People are thinking, they have been calling me a boy, they have been calling me a girl, they have been calling me all these things. And so maybe I'm a boy, though they are girls. And so a sexually oriented generation brings about mistaken identity. And mistaken identity puts people into identity confusion or identity crisis. And identity crisis makes a generation that will produce fathers and mothers who will live a lie. Because God only created male and female. God didn't have a business creating any other person. And even if we are to go to science, no science proves that we have any other apart from male and female. And so the identity confusion in this generation, which comes out of abuse, it comes out of maybe a broken self-esteem, comes out of body shaming, it comes out of emotional abuse. It is making this generation take a path that is not really what was the original intent of man being created or man being brought to this world. And so until next time, I'm so happy. Keep tuned to Talent Spell. This is a place where you get real, relevant, and relational information. So may God bless you till we meet next time.